Hey everybody, in this video we're talking about how to solve a comparative advantage problem. So you always got your countries over on the left here and your goods up on the top. This is an output problem, so we're measuring in terms of how many cars country A and B can produce and how many units of wheat they can produce. So what you'll immediately notice is that country A can produce more cars and more wheat than country B. So we would say they have the absolute advantage in the production of cars, 10 to 8, and the absolute advantage in the production of wheat, 40 to 24. That's absolute advantage, but comparative advantage is unfortunately not that simple. Comparative advantage means we've got to figure out who can produce 1 unit of each good at the lowest opportunity cost. In other words, who's the most efficient? Who gives up the least each time they produce one of these goods? And that's something called the per unit opportunity cost. And there is a nice life-saving formula that's going to make solving these problems really, really simple. Loss over gain. Calculating the per unit opportunity cost is just as simple as loss over gain. It's plugging in numbers. Let me show you how it works. For country A, in the production of cars, if country A produces all 10 of their cars, what will be their loss? Well, it's the 40 wheat that they could have produced. So 40, the loss is going to go up on the top. And what will be the gain? Well, it's the 10 cars that they did produce. So it's as simple as 40 over 10 equals 4 wheat. What this means in context is that each time country A produced a car, they gave up 4 wheat. Let's do the same thing. Let's see what happens when country A produces wheat. Their loss is going to be, well, the 10 cars that they can no longer produce. The gain is the 40 wheat that they did make. And what that means is each time they produce a unit of wheat, they give up 0.25 cars. And make that bigger for you. Okay. So let's do the same thing for country B now. We're going to go through, solve each one, and then actually answer our question. Country B, when they produce all 8 cars, their loss is the 24 wheat divided by the gain of 8 cars. That gives you 3 wheat. So each time country B produces a car, they're giving up 3 wheat. And for the wheat box in country B, we've got the 8 cars that are given up divided by the 24 wheat that's gained. That gives you 0.33 cars per wheat. In other words, each time country B produces wheat, they gave up a third of a car. Now we've got all the information we could possibly need to solve the comparative advantage problem. So who can make a car at the lowest opportunity cost? Well, it's country B. Country B, it takes 3 wheat to produce a car, whereas country A, it takes 4. So I'll highlight that for you. So country B actually has the comparative advantage in cars, even though country A had the absolute advantage. Now let's look at wheat. Who can produce a unit of wheat at the lowest opportunity cost? It's clearly country A. They can make a unit of wheat, and it only costs them a quarter of a car compared to country B's 1/3 of a car. And there you have it. One thing that you're probably going to see a lot of is this thing called terms of trade. And it's the trickiest part of comparative advantage, but I'm going to show you a nice, simple way to work through that as well. First, start by picking one good, either cars or wheat. Kind of a pro tip, what I like to do is pick the good where the numbers are larger for the per unit opportunity cost. In this case, it's cars. So I'm going to say 1 car and then put a little colon here. That means will be traded for. And then all you've got to do is a life-saving shortcut. All you've got to do is look between these per unit opportunity costs. The answer is going to be a number between 3 and 4. You can pick 3.1, 0.2, 0.3. I always just go with the nice and simple 3.5 wheat. So that is an acceptable terms of trade. 1 car for 3.5 wheat. The reason that works, let's talk about why that works. Country B is going to be the one producing cars because they've got the comparative advantage. And every time country B makes a car, it costs them 3 wheat. So when they're selling these cars to country A, they've got to get back at least 3 wheat. So that's why the minimum number has to be 3. But why can't they charge country A, well, 20 wheat for a car? Well, because country A can make a car itself for just 4 wheat. So if the price goes above 4, country A is going to say, no thanks. We don't want to do that deal. We can make a car ourselves for just 4 wheat. So the only situation in which both countries accept that trade is when you've got your numbers between the per unit opportunity costs. And if you happen to pick the other side as well, no problem, same exact thing. Another acceptable answer be 1 wheat can be traded for, oops, no space there. 1 wheat can be traded for, and just look between your two per unit opportunity costs, 0.3 cars, perfectly acceptable answer. So when you're within those ranges, both countries say yes. When you're outside those ranges, somebody's going to like it, somebody's not. And there you go. That's how to solve a comparative advantage problem and get your terms of trade bonus there.